Excuse me. Been a bit under the weather, but welcome everybody. It's exciting. I just got started on DLive and YouTube, streaming from both of them now. And so that's a first time for me. But as the title says, nothing new here. So it was interesting. I was on Instagram and I saw a post from a page that I had seen before, and I posted this quote from Heber J Grant, and it said, he, and referring to Satan, earlier on in the quote it talks about Satan, but he plans to destroy liberty and freedom, economic, political, and religious, and to set up in place thereof the greatest, most widespread, and most complete tyranny that has ever oppressed men. He is working under such perfect disguise. That many do not recognize either him or his methods. And so that quote was by Heber J Grant. And for those of you who don't know, which I'm assuming most people, well, I don't know how many people really watch this, but my kids would know who Heber J Grant is. He's one of my favorite Latter-day Prophets. He lived, this quote was back in 1942 at a general conference. And it caused me to go up and look up the quote and to read more of the statements. And there's some really interesting stuff that he says here. Now, for those of you, well, some of the reasons why I really like Heber J Grant is he was a really no-nonsense type of a guy. He would make jokes at the devil's expense. Like there's a story where he was going out to he was supposed to bring a ham to a Christmas party, and he went out to get a ham from their smokehouse, and he's like, oh, I could get any ham. I don't need to get my best ham. We could save that for our family. And he thought to himself, well, where did that come from? And he's like, oh, it's you, Mr. Devil. He would talk to him like that. He's like, well, shut up, or else I'll bring 2 hams. And it's just kind of like, well, shut up, Mr. Devil, or I'll bring 2 hams. And when he would catch himself having an idea like that was, you could tell was coming from the devil or from the dark one. I don't know. There was this nickname that they had for him. I want to say Old Nick or something like that, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But he would call it out. And he'd be like, well, shut up, Mr. Devil. Or he'd... there's a story where he he was fasting, going without food, and somebody had offered him some cherries and it was like early in the morning. There was still frost on the cherries, and it was just a bowl of cherries, and he was in a carriage with one of the other members of the 12, or somebody else that was there that was kind of just watching the event, and they were getting ready, and the person offering the cherries didn't know that they were fasting, but they were both fasting in preparation for this meeting that they wanted to have the spirit with them, and the guy offers him the cherries, and he's like, oh, I'd love some. No. And he turns so the guy was sitting on one side, he turns to the other side, and he's like, knocked you out there, Mr. Devil, didn't I? And not talking to anybody, but like teasing the devil, like, oh, you thought I was going to mess up, didn't you? No, not me, It's just kind of silly like that. But there's a lot of like just old-fashioned charm in that of calling something out that I really love about this prophet. Well, the words that he said here before the quote that I read earlier were really really profound, I thought, and I just wanted to share them. These days through which we are now passing, present. So, sorry, I'm gonna have to. Well, I'll just squint. These days through which we are now passing present many problems which are new to all of us, but are particularly strange to the younger generation, those who have little background of experience and whose knowledge is limited and immature. Infidelity, atheism, unchastity, intemperance, civil corruption, greed, avarice, ambition, personal, political, national, are more powerful today than at any other time in the lives of us now living. They are pulling and thrusting us almost at will into new fields of action, new lines of thought. They are shaking the faith, undermining the morals, polluting the lives of the people. They have thrown many so far off balance in all of their activities, economic, social, political, and religious, that they stand in real danger of falling. Satan is making war against all the wisdom that has come to men through their ages of experience. He is seeking to overturn and destroy the very foundation upon which society, government, and religion rest. He aims to have men adopt theories and practices which he induced their forefathers over the ages to adopt and try, only to be discarded by them when found unsound, impractical, and ruinous. He plans to destroy liberty and freedom, economic, political, and religious, and to set up in place thereof the greatest, most widespread, and most complete tyranny that has ever oppressed men. He is working under such perfect disguise that many do not recognize either him or his methods. There is no crime he would not commit, no debauchery he would not set up, no plague he would not send, no heart he would not break, no life he would not take, no soul he would not destroy. He comes as a thief in the night. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Without their knowing, it is the people, without their knowing it, the people are being urged down paths that lead only to destruction. Satan never before had so firm a grip on the generation as he has now. Those are pretty bleak words. It's pretty bleak and dark. And I keep reading through it, and it's really descriptive of today. That was back in 1942. You look at 2019 right now, and you look at how Satan is really trying to push degeneracy. It's if you stand against any of the vices of this world, whether it be homosexuality, whether it be pornography, whether it be a lot of sexual deviance, it has become commonplace, has become expected. You hear stories about schools who are teaching kindergartners about self-touching and stuff like that. And it's just horrible. It's horrendous. And it's one of those things that's really, we're seeing a battle happen in our days right now. But he goes on further, and this is the part that I found really, really neat, really inspirational. Listen to this. This is maybe 4 paragraphs later. He says, The principles of the gospel are all embracing. They are everlasting, unchangeable, ultimate truth. They will fit every situation, every problem, every contingency that may arise in the life of man. There are no local problems, no peculiar situations in ward or stake that may not be solved under these principles. It will not do for any church officer or member to work out for themselves a different course from the prescribed. This will lead to disorder, and the Lord's house is a house of order. When new light is needed, or further instruction, the Lord will make them known through his appointed representative. What we should seek is wisdom to apply the old and true principles to new situations. Let us not suppose that man has recently changed in his essential qualities or habits, for this is not true. All that has happened today is that some basic passions, which through the generations mankind had brought under control, have now broken loose in something of their primeval strength. They are not new passions. We possess the principles which brought them under subjection once. These principles were given to man in the very beginning. For this exact purpose, we must now apply them again to conquer these same old foes of righteousness. This is not a new world. It is an old and sinful world, again returned and now once more to be reconquered and rejuvenated. We must cling to the rigid simplicity of the principles Jesus taught, to the strict simplicity of the ordinances he established. Neither elegance, nor pomp, nor elaborate ritual and ceremony had any place therein. We must keep the everlasting covenant. I love the fact that he pointed out, I love how he pointed out that it hasn't changed. Life isn't changed. We're not in a new world. We're not in a new time. We're people. We've always had these same struggles and trials. We've always had these same temptations. Over time, we were able to subjugate those temptations, and we're able to bridle those passions. But that has broken loose. And so we don't need to be discouraged. We need to realize that the gospel of Christ, of Jesus Christ, is what brought those passions under subjugation in the first place. We need to come back to him. And it was interesting recently, a few days ago, I just popped in on somebody's stream. I don't even know who it was, but he was listening to a book while he was playing some video game. And the book was, they mentioned it, and I want to say it was Orthodoxy. I don't remember. It was some religious book, and I think it was fairly old. I'm guessing it was written like, I don't know. It was definitely archaic in its language, and it was old. But the comments were, or the book was brought illustrated at one point, and this is just what I remember from maybe 15 minutes of listening. But he talked about Christianity and how a lot of the virtues that Christianity helps point out are things that seem to be self-contradictory. Bravery, for instance. Bravery is a little bit self-contradictory because to be brave, you have to be willing to put yourself into danger. If you're on the battlefield, you have to be willing to go out and fight and to be brave. But bravery also allows the value of your life. You don't view your life as nothing. You're willing to sacrifice your life for something greater, but you value your life still. And that's Christianity takes these two principles and that seem to be opposites. I value my life. I'm reckless. Those are two things that are opposites, but it helps them come in harmony to form a principle of bravery. And he took three or four different the person took three or four different passions, I don't know what you'd call them, motivations or principles. And it was just really neat. I wish I want to find that book and read the book because it was really fascinating to think of. And it's one of those things that there are so many things that the gospel of Jesus Christ brings that are simple. They're easy. Love the Lord with all your heart, might, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's not complex. That's what happened in Christ's time, was they made the law of Moses so complex. They made it so full of these rules that took away the meaning of the law. They took away the meaning of what people were doing, so that they could do evil in a justified way, which was not justified. And it's one of those things that when you see someone or something try and make things more complicated, when you see it in yourself, I know I have. When I see, oh, I could do this because insert some reason to why you can have bad behavior, why you can be mad at your cousin or your aunt, your brother or your sister or your neighbor. Insert some reason why you don't have the rule doesn't apply to you. There's plenty of reasons that Satan tries to push onto our minds, but it's not. MK Slayer, what's up? It's not worth it. It's one of those things that we're not. Our lives are too. It's too easy to let ourselves get confused. When you try and make things complicated, you're usually making things worse. There's a poster. So I'm a software developer, and we used to have a poster on the wall at my office that said, "It was really simple until it wasn't." And it has like this diagram, and the diagram's like three boxes, and they come down to like a simple like one box, some kind of UML diagram. But then it turns into this crazy web of it was just nuts. And that's how it was. It was like it starts off simple until it's not. And the same thing happens in morality and in religion. It's simple until it's not. And I don't think that's the way that God wants it to be. He wants us to learn little by little, line upon line, precept upon precept. And that's all I had really to share today. Well,